Test, test. Good evening. So tonight, Dr. Jerry Gaines is here from Hampton Roads, Virginia. His brother Jack is up front here. Dr. Gaines is my ex-teacher, track coach, football coach, and my mentor. So he's coming to talk about something that him and his brothers worked on for many, many years. Equation of Life. It's a speech, and he'll talk more motivational stuff about. They go all over the country delivering this to different campuses and schools and churches, things like that. So if you guys will, give them your undivided attention. We're going to have a Q&A right afterwards. So let him get through this, and then we'll ask questions, and they'll answer a lot of good questions right afterwards, all right?
Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Let me have that one.
You want that thing going?
No, we'll just let it go. I'll just use this. It's okay. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I want to introduce you to someone. I've not been in Ohio before. I've traveled a lot of places, I've just never been to Ohio. But it just so happens that one of my former runners is here this evening. He lives up in Lancaster, and I wanted to introduce you to him. It's Ed Spencer and his wife, Kim, his daughter-in-law, Vanessa, and his son, Kyle. So if you guys will stand up. A lot of times I go places and people show up, it just blows my mind. Let me tell you a little bit about the beginning. I was an educator in high schools for 40 years. 40 years. That means a lot of things. One of the things it means is that the first class of seniors I had are now 64 years old. They're grandparents, yes. Yeah, it amazes me too. It means that I had one of my former students is a professor of accounting at Auburn University. He's been there 19 years, and I taught him in the 9th and 10th grade. But before you're impressed by that, I taught his mother too. So her wedding was the first one I ever went to. But what I want to talk to you tonight is about your favorite subject. Think about your favorite subject just for a second. Now, you probably came up with something like math or history or science or something like that. Your favorite subject is actually you. You are your favorite subject. If you think about it, 99% of the decisions you make from day to day involve pleasing you. You decide what clothes you wear. You decide what hairstyles to wear. You decide what you're going to have for lunch. You decide what friends you're going to have. It all has to do with you. Is that a bad thing? No. As a matter of fact, you're supposed to be your favorite subject. Because you're growing into who you need to be. You need to be focusing on getting yourself as good as you can get yourself for what I will share with you later will be your goal in the long run. Now, what I wanted to tell you is that after 40 years in the classroom, all of the students that I saw came to me and they requested the same thing. All of them. All of them said, tell me who I am. All of them did the same thing. The way I looked at it is each student I had brought a book to me, and they say, this is the book of my life. This is me. Open it and read it and tell me who I am, and you teach me the way I need to be taught. And that brings up the subject of what I taught. Would you believe, just by looking, that I was a Spanish teacher? Yes, 21 years worth. Taught Spanish. Don't laugh, it comes in handy nowadays. Now, it never fails. Every semester, at the beginning of every semester, somebody came to me and said, Mr. Gaines, I don't do foreign languages. Have you ever said that to yourself? I don't do foreign languages? They said that to me. And I just give them this little quiz. I said, tell me, doesn't S-O spell so? If S-O is so, now imagine you're from another country and you see S-O and it's so. What should D-O be? Do, but it's not, it's do, isn't it? But you can spell so, S-E-W too, can't you? That's so. And you can spell sow, S-O-W too, but it can be also sow, right? And do can be D-O-D-U-E or D-E-W, can it? Yeah. If you spell bear, the animal, B-E-A-R, if you take the B off, what should be left is air, right? But it's not, it's ear, right? Unless you spell bear the other way, B-A-R-E. You take the B off of that, you should have air, but you have R. English is a crazy language. There's 4 ways to spell sense. And doe can be 4 things. Doe can be a female deer, buck doe. Doe can be raw bread, knead the dough, and you spell knead with a K. Doe can be a musical note, do, re, mi, and doe can be an entranceway. Close that dough. English is a complicated language. What I want to share with you is what all of those years of students taught me, because I was a student. I thought all those years I was the coach. I thought all those years I was the teacher. I thought all those years I was the mentor and the counselor. But all those years I was a student, watching students and learning about each one of them because no 2 of them are the same. Excuse me just for a second. Okay. Okay. I have something I want to show you. It'll be up there tomorrow. The clicker, okay. Okay, good. I thought you started. If I asked you what the capital of Kazakhstan was, you'd say that first line, wouldn't you? What is the line? I don't even know. That's what you would say. And how do you describe the way you feel on Friday after class? How you feeling? I'm tired. It gets better. Looks sophisticated, doesn't it? I just do a fantastic lesson in the classroom, okay? And Alonzo's in the back of the class. He never participates. But I just deliver a dynamic lesson, and I am finished and feeling good about myself, and Alonzo raises his hand, and I say, yes, Alonzo, what's the deal? And he asks this question. We got to know this for tomorrow. What language is this? Nobody could come to me and say, I don't speak Spanish. You've already mastered some of the craziest languages going. Not only English, but you speak that too. And it goes both ways. Haven't you seen this? The 2 hunters out, and they say, I'm switching accents on you. Hey, MR ducks. MR not. MR2 ducks. How you tell? See them wings? Yup. MR ducks all right. What language is that? Then what are you doing understanding it? Who taught you that? So nobody had any right to come to my class and say, I can't speak Spanish, because you've already mastered languages. And if you're not impressed by that, watch this. Believe it or not, you already know what that is. You already know it. You just don't know you know it. This is what students taught me was the path through life. That's everything. I call it the equation of life. I don't care what class you go into, any class. Every child starts with a level of that. There's no way you're sitting in the auditorium if you don't qualify there. You have a level of intelligence. That means you can learn. And if you have that intelligence, look at what else you have. I've yet to find a student who is not gifted in some area. What our adults need to do is find out what your gift is and then sprinkle a little turf builder on it to fertilize your gifts and make you as good as you can be in what you do best. And it varies, even within the same family. Now, if I ask you what does intelligence I and gifts G put together mean, it doesn't mean anything. Intelligence and gifts alone mean nothing. Ask any coach. Any coach will tell you that they've had plenty of athletes who were very intelligent, plenty of athletes who were very gifted. But if they don't have a square underneath there, if they don't have an attitude to apply those, it means absolutely zero, like we said. Nothing. That means you've got to have an attitude to work. That, students taught me, was the first phase of the equation of life. You've got to be willing to work. Now, apparently you qualify, because if you didn't, you wouldn't even be here. You couldn't come to this facility and expect to just come here and sit like a bump on a log and then just leave and hope that things turn out well. It doesn't work that well. You've got to work for it. Your problem right now is that you haven't been in the world very long. You're still young. You haven't had enough time to learn all that you need to learn as you're trying to be who you need to be. If you don't have the time, what do you think the E stands for? It goes with time. It's experience. You don't have any experience? Why do you think a 5-year veteran player is better than a rookie? It makes perfect sense. Here's a big one. Are you willing to listen? You see, as you're busy being your own favorite subject, you got to be willing to absorb what people around you are telling you. People that might know a little bit better than you about what to do under certain circumstances. How would you like to tell your coach how to coach? How would you like to tell your instructor how to teach? It doesn't even make sense. Notice the arrows underneath listen. One arrowhead is bigger than the other. It means that the listening needs to be more on one side than on the other. Who needs to do all the listening? The people with the time and experience. Who are they? We call them life mentors. Who are life mentors? Well, they can be coaches. They can be teachers. They can be preachers, counselors, anybody that you can trust to tell you the truth. Why are you here? You're here to make yourself better, but we'll tell you why in just a second. If you're willing to follow this equation up to that point, you'll learn something else called responsibility. Responsibility is when you do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because anybody's going to penalize you. You do it because it's right. Homework, assignments, chores, the whole 9 yards that goes with that. You learn responsibility and you learn the square root of confidence. Confidence, square root, because you learn confidence in yourself and you'll earn everybody else's confidence in you. Your coach pushes you out onto the field because he has confidence in you that you'll do the job that he needs you to get done. Have you ever taken a test that you weren't prepared for? You ever taken a test you didn't study for? You go in and you hope you can just make a D? You go in saying, I believe I can pass this? Belief is just that. It's not quite good enough. You don't want to do, you want to go in and take a test and know you're going to kill it. Know you're going to ace it. The only question in your head ought to be how high my A is going to be. Have you ever done that? If you go in with that kind of confidence, you elevate it to a level of faith. Faith is not just a religious exercise. You go flip a light switch, you have faith that the light's going to come on. Faith is assurance. You're sure you can do this. And how many things do you do in your life where you actually are assured that it's going to get done? Coaches talk about this next phase a lot. It's the most obscene word in the English language. Obscenity. It's not a 4-letter word, it's a 5-letter word. And that word is what? Pride? Is a bad thing? Here's what you got to worry about with pride. Pride is all about me. Tell me what the Lambeau leap is. Tell me what the Lambeau leap is. Because somebody in here knows. What's the Lambeau leap? You get a touchdown and you go jump in the stands. Who does that? Which position player does that most often? The wide receivers. Now, wait a minute. Does the wide receiver throw himself a pass? So he needs a quarterback that can deliver him a pass accurately so he can get it and get in the end zone, right? And the quarterback needs the time to deliver an accurate pass to you, so you got to have offensive linemen keeping the defensive lineman off him long enough for him to find you and deliver you the pass. True? Then why is he getting all the glory? Have you noticed that football players now are giving the ball to the lineman and letting the lineman slam it? You ever seen that? That's why. Because pride is a slippery slope. Pride is something that looks good on the surface, but it's really all about me. And I'm not particularly the biggest Eagles fan, but I love the idea of how they played it, that non-pride game they played. And it got them to the Super Bowl championship. Great. Pride pulls you down and holds you back. What you want to be is the opposite of that. What's the opposite of that? It's humility. Humility? They'll call me a chump. They'll call me a punk. They'll call me weak. It takes more strength to do this than it does to be prideful. And all those years when I was in school, first day of school, I would see kids come in, and they'd come in and they'd have their red Nikes on and the red hat and everything, and wonderful. Cliques are pride signs. If you're humble, you'll be more willing to forgive people. How often does something wrong happen to you in a day? Or somebody does something wrong to you? It happens every day. What you want to be is what I like to call otherly in your thinking. Because I taught Spanish, I thought of that word in Spanish too. You want to hear that word in Spanish? Otherly in Spanish sounds sophisticated. It doesn't mean a thing. It sounds like a good word, but it doesn't mean anything. The word would be otramente. Hay que pensar en una manera otramente. You got to think otherly. What is otherly? Otherly is when you think about the other person above yourself. Do you do that? Every player on every team does that, because if you don't do your job, how's the team going to succeed? You see, the quarterback needs a whole bunch of people around him so the receiver can do the Lambeau leap. Generally, if I taught students and they got to this point, I didn't have to worry about them. They could go to the University of South Dakota, and I know they'd be just fine. They go from intelligent to wise, and that's where we want them. Because when they get to wisdom, they realize that they're not the most powerful thing in the universe. There's something more powerful than them. Now, I'm not preaching to you, but you can look at God in a whole lot of different ways. As a matter of fact, the most popular God in the world is money. Now, there's a whole bunch of religions, hundreds of them. Most religions tell you to be humble, to think otherly, to be forgiven. Everything else is pride-based. Everything else. So you only really have two choices. Two. Be prideful or be otherly. I looked at this equation, and the little g matches the big G very nicely. Where do your gifts come from? Also, the little w works very nicely with the big W. It's wise to work. And if you have a good work ethic, I'm sure they teach you that here. If you have a good work ethic, you can get where you need to get. The difficulties will be there, but you got a good work ethic, you can get there. And that's phase 3. You know, I looked at this and I thought that this applied to all young people, but this applies to everybody. Adults too. Adults too. Now, let me ask you a question. I did some research on diamonds once. Diamonds. May I talk to the ladies just for a second? Ladies, if you go to a jewelry store and the jeweler says, "Madam, there are 4 characteristics by which we judge the value of diamonds. They all begin with the letter C." Do you know what those 4 C's are, ladies? Do you? Oh, come on. I asked this question of a bunch of girls who were in the 8th grade, and they knew this. What are they? Carrot, clarity, cut, and color. Those are the 4 C's. Women are supposed to know that. Guys have 5 C's. Guys have a capital C and 4 lowercase c's. Guys' capital C is what? Cost. Because we don't care what color a diamond is. Our attitude is whatever makes you happy, baby. That's the way we think. Okay? So we take care of the capital C, and then we have 4 lowercase c's, and that's how you're going to handle the capital C, and that's with cash, check, or credit card. Because that's the way we think. But what about this diamond thing? You said cut. Cut is the shape of a diamond. I looked at diamonds, and diamonds are a whole lot like people. The cut of a diamond is its shape. You got people that are all kinds of shapes too, don't you? Well represented right here. What about carat? Carat is weight. We got lightweights and heavyweights, don't we? So people are like diamonds in that regard too. Color. Did you know that color in a diamond comes from impurities? If you mix a mineral of some type with the carbon that's in a diamond, it'll turn blue or green, or did you know they come in all colors? You know what color the most expensive ones are? Pink and red. Diamonds come in a lot of colors just like people. But you know, diamonds are also the hardest substance in the earth. There's nothing in earth that's harder than them. Nothing. If diamonds are that hard, then how do they polish them to look like the ones you look like that you buy at the jewelry store? How do they do that? Of course, they don't look like that when they come out of the ground. Believe it or not, there's nothing hard enough to polish a diamond but another diamond. So if we want to, say we're an educational institution, and we want to raise diamond kids, nobody can do that but other people. Now, you're not a polished diamond yet. You're not there yet. Oh, you've got some polish, you've got some shape to you and some color and some size and some clarity and all of this, but you're not there yet. You've got to be willing to sit still long enough for those around you who are polished diamonds to grind away the facets on you until you look like a polished gem, so you can then pass that same characteristic down to others and shine on others as well. That's about diamonds. At home, we have a modern wonder of the universe, it's called. It's called the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. Have you ever heard of it? No? It's 17.6 miles of bridge and tunnel that bridges mainland Virginia to Virginia's eastern shore. 17.6 miles. Now, if you had to drive that, would you drive it? No problem. Well, let me ask you this. If you had to drive that and someone had come along and taken the rails off that bridge and you had to drive it, you probably would still drive it. After all, it's the same width. But you would change the way you crossed it 3 ways. What are the 3 ways you would change the way you crossed it? Go ahead. I don't care what the posted speed limit is, you're going to slow down. That's one. What else are you going to do? The most logical thing. You're going to move to the middle. You're going to stay to the inside. And 3, there will be no texting. Will there? You'll be watching what you're doing. Okay, now, here's the point I'm making. The years you're going through right now, your youth years, your growing years, are just like that bridge. You need the rails. The rails are there to tell you how far you can go to the left or how far you can go to the right without going off. If you want to go further than that, you better be mighty thirsty. Because it's a big, deep bay. What I'm saying is, while you're in your formative years, while you're saying, I'm my favorite subject, you need to make sure that it's okay for you to have limits. But that's not what you really want as a teenager when you get around somewhere between 15 and 20 years old. You want no limits. You want to have freedom, right? Not a good idea. 40 years in the classroom has taught me that what you really want is those rails there because they make you secure. Why? Because if those rails are there, you'll do the speed limit, you'll stay in your lane, and you won't worry about things unnecessarily. But here's the trick. The trick is, as a young person, your tendency is to run against the rails. That's what you do. You don't run into the rails because you want to go over the side. You run into the rails to test the strength of the rails. When you were in high school and you walked past your class and there was a substitute teacher in there, what were your first thoughts? You know what you were thinking. You're not going to that class today, or you're going to go there late, or if you go at all, you're going to try to get out. Because it's your human nature to bump against the rails. That's what you do. You need strong rails. So the substitute has got to be strong enough to tell you, hey, look, you ain't getting out of here. Because you're going to test them. But don't worry about it. It's not just you. Adults do the same thing. You think I'm kidding? Put an adult any age out on the interstate, and if the speed limit is 60 miles an hour and they're going to turn on their cruise control, what do they set their cruise control at? They never set it at the speed limit. They never do. They always set it a little bit faster. Why? Because they know that I'm going to see what I can get away with. I'm going to see just how much Officer Smith is going to let me get away with. And then if he stops you for going 5 over, which is really speeding, you'll give him a bunch of grief. Well, I wasn't going 5 over, but that ain't the speed limit, is it? It's our nature to do that. That's what we do. Your parents give you a curfew of midnight. What are you going to do? You're going to come in at 12:15. And if they don't say anything, what are you going to do next? 12:30 next time, until they step up and say something. You need the rails. I was chaperoning a prom one year. And as I was walking around trying to look chaperone, there was a girl in the corner crying. She was surrounded by 3 of her friends. Now, this was a girl I knew whose parents were quite well off. She was wearing a $1,000 gown. I knew she had a new car, and her parents filled it with gas every week, and they gave her allowance of $100 a week. And she was crying. I'm like you. I'm thinking, well, what in the world has she got to cry about? As I walked by just in time to hear her say with a shrug of her shoulders, my parents, listen to me, my parents don't care what I do. What is she saying? What is she saying? She's saying that she needs the rails. You need the rails. You crave the rails. And if you don't get them, it makes you uneasy. It'll make you get out of your lane. It'll make you not do the speed limit. It'll make you paranoid about crossing the bridge. Because if you're crossing the bridge and the rails aren't strong enough, through the rails you go and down into the drink you go. Now we're getting to your league. Why? Because the currents in the water are always super strong, and they sweep you away in no time at all. And that could be any one of you at any given time. Sometimes through no fault of your own. The currents are always strong there, and the best schools in the world can only net up so many of you and get you back on track. Sometimes you don't get to net them and put them back on the bridge at all. Why? Because you get a wave that'll come and wash them off, like you just saw happen in Florida. Through no fault of their own, they're just taken right off the bridge. And there's nothing you can do. The best schools in the world can't save them. The whole idea is to get you to the other side. Despite the fact that it's your tendency to run into the rails on the way across. You see, if all of those people that represent authority figures in your life are strong enough, and they're willing to stand there and keep you on the bridge, keep you from crashing through, that's what teachers do. That's the success rate that we want. That's why this particular school, my brother and I were talking about it earlier, that's why we're so impressed with this particular school. Why? We have never been any place like this. Never. Because when you think about your past, when you think about where you came from, when you think about the opportunities that you were afforded, you could have easily gotten washed off the bridge and swept away. But you're here. You're here. Now, what are you going to do about it? You see, it's not comfortable to sit and have somebody grind a facet on you to shine you as a diamond. It's not comfortable to sit and do that. It's not comfortable to have to do a term paper. It's not comfortable to have to do chores. It's not comfortable to go to practice and sweat and go through all the pain that you have to go through there. But it polishes you so that you can end up being a shiny gemstone. For what purpose? I had a student once. Her name was Helen. Helen was just a petite little blonde girl, curly hair, glasses. She ran cross country. She was a distance runner for me. Pretty tough little kid. She went to the University of North Carolina. She joined ROTC, Air Force ROTC to be specific. When she graduated, she went all around the world. They shipped her to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan first, then they shipped her to Japan, then they shipped her to London, where they assigned her a mission out on a base that was radioactive, and they didn't tell her. Where am I going with this? Helen Jones went to that base, and the radioactivity there caused her years later now, she's got two daughters, one 8 and one 11, to get brain cancer. As Helen Jones lay in her living room on her couch, and I go by to visit her, she says, "You know, Coach, I don't mind dying, but I sure hate the thought of leaving my girls." She was homeschooling them at the time. What did Helen do wrong? Nothing. Sometimes you get washed off the bridge and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not your fault. But what Helen Jones taught me, and believe me, like I said, I always thought that I was the coach, the teacher, the mentor, and everything. I was the student the whole time. I'm constantly learning, you see, because one of the most interesting characteristics about diamonds is that there are no two that are identical. Did you know that? At a molecular level, for all the diamonds that have ever been mined, that have ever been sold all over the world, there are no two that are identical. It's the same as your thumbprint, isn't it? Why do you think law enforcement uses your fingerprints as a means of solid ID because there's never going to be another fingerprint like yours. If you are that special, why would you not do something special with that? Isn't that like a way of saying there must be something about you? And you can have identical twins. Same DNA, doesn't matter. Your thumbprints are different, even on identical twins. Did you know? If you are that unique, if you are that special, why would you dare to not go out and do all that you can to be as special as you can? You see, you got 3 phases in your life. You got pre-work, work, and post-work. Pre-work is when you're your favorite subject. Don't babies say that? Don't babies say, I am my favorite subject, don't they? They say, listen, I'm hungry. I'm going to cry until you give me something to eat. Hey, look, see this diaper here? You better fix this or I'm going to cry and you ain't going to sleep. They're all about me, aren't they? They don't care about waking you up at 3 a.m. They don't care. It's all about me. And that's fine because you are nurturing them to be who they need to be. You do that because that's what they need right now. At a point in their lives, that's going to turn. That's going to turn. And they're going to start thinking about doing those things for others. I saw it at graduations all the time. I went to more than 100 of them. The principal always says the same thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we would ask that you please help to keep this a dignified ceremony. Please, when your child's name is called, please do not make any noise so that the next person's parents can hear their name too. So what happens? They call John Smith, and back up in the corner of the Coliseum, ah, that's my baby. And after the name, they leave. But what they're saying is, those people are saying, I remember when you were not a polished diamond. That's the parents' first step, first serious step at seeing you polished, you see. Then you go on to college. And you see, when you graduated from high school, did you graduate for you or did you graduate for your parents? I heard somebody say both. Yeah. You did it for you because you're your favorite subject, and you did it for them to please them as well. And that's fine. That's just the way it's supposed to be. If you prepare yourself well while you are your favorite subject, that middle phase of life, that work phase, goes better. You still continue to grow. You can get in and you can do all of the in-services or all of the training, you see, and then they'll polish you up. Then you can go on and be the best salesperson in the history of the business. And that's fine. That's exactly where you want to go. And then later on, we want you to train other salespeople. Your diamond now is shining and you're shining it on everybody else. Isn't that what coaches do? Don't coaches play the sport? They play it up to the top level and then they get out and they want to show somebody else how to do that? It happens all the time. Helen Jones, the girl who passed, was telling me, Coach, the only thing in life that's really worth anything is relationships. It ain't about money. If it was, then all of these multimillionaires you see in the NBA and the NFL would not get, they earn more money than they or their children could ever spend. What do? They go out and they start nonprofits and try to give back to the communities they came from. Why? Why do they do that? Entertainers do the same thing. Why? Because they know it ain't about your stuff. You see, because when Helen was laying on her couch dying, she didn't tell me about her checking account. She wasn't telling me about the size of her house, and she had a nice house. She was saying stuff like, Coach, do you remember when? Right. They want to talk about the memories, and the memories are the precious byproduct of all the relationships you generate in your lifetime. That's why I introduced you to Ed and his family. This is relationship. So from my coaching this one guy, I end up generating memories from relationships with another person and another person and another person just from the investment from him. And that's why we do what we do. Athletes perform because they're investing. You work hard for the sake of every member of that team. LeBron James is a pretty fair basketball player, wouldn't you say? Why in the world is he the hardest working player on his team? He's already one of the top, at least top 3 in the world. Why in the world does he work so hard? They were interviewing Stephen Curry's coach one day. And he said, you know, Stephen Curry takes 300 3-point shots every practice. Do you find that impressive? That's not the impressive part. You know what his coach said? He expects to make every one of them. He sets his standard up here. Why? Because he's that kind of diamond. He doesn't have to be like everybody else. If you want to be a little green diamond, that's fine. It still doesn't devalue you one bit. And that's what the message is that this school sends you, that you are something too. You can be something special as well. All you have to do is be willing, while you're busy being your own favorite subject, to be willing to put up with the grinding on you to get you to where you need to be so you can shine on somebody else later. That's the name of it. That's what it's all about. Because in the end, nothing's going to matter but your relationships. Nothing's going to matter but your memories. And let's face it, life is temporary. I know. I've seen a lot, but I ended up being rich enough that Bill Gates has nothing on me. Nothing. Why? Because I've got just as many memories as he's got. It's all about the memories. You see, honestly, I could die tomorrow, and I could be perfectly content with it. Why? Because of all of the people, all of the memories that I have been able to generate. And you know something else too? You don't want to surround yourself with people just like you. The more different, the better. Why? Because people like you can't teach you anything. What are they going to teach you? Except what you already know. So it's okay for you to expose yourself to somebody from Kazakhstan. What's the capital of Kazakhstan? I asked you again before, and you said, only no. The capital of Kazakhstan is a city called Astana. Can you remember that? Like it's going to be important to you later. Yeah, sure. Astana. Work on the pre-work years. You're still there. You're just about ready to get out of that because as soon as you leave here, you might go to a 4-year college, you might go right into the work field, but you're preparing for your work years. And if you do those first 2 phases well, you will be able to take it easy and retire like this guy here and go on a cruise to the Bahamas somewhere. Because that's what he does. Every summer, his biggest decision is, I wonder where I'm going to go this summer. Kim, where are we going to go? What a good problem. Give me a 6-pack of problems like that. That's what you want to do. But he invested early, and I'll tell you straight up, right in front of him, it was not a piece of cake for him. He came from a broken home too. Coach Cox hardly ever saw his dad because his dad was in the Navy and gone all the time. How do you make it? You had to have somebody who was interested enough to shine their diamond light on them so that they could see the diamond light in themselves and ultimately end up just like Coach Cox did, coming right back here and shining his diamond light on you. You see, it's like a giant relay race. That's the way it works. If you're willing to play, if you're willing to listen. But that depends on you. Because what matters more than anything, and that's what makes this country so great, is your ability to choose. Choose. Choose what you want to do. Choose. Because nobody can twist your arm and make you do anything. I was an assistant principal, and I can't tell you how many times I had a student come in there, and he hands me a referral, and I look at the referral, and I say, "You said this to the teacher?" "Yeah, the teacher made me mad." "The teacher didn't make you mad." "Teacher did make me mad." "The teacher didn't make you mad." "The teacher did make me mad. You weren't in there." The teacher made you mad if you want to convince me that that teacher controls your emotions. Teacher don't control your emotions. The teacher does what teachers do. You respond like you choose to respond. You choose. And then they get the real smart aleck answer, and they say, "Well, you send me home, all you're doing is giving me a vacation." No, I'm not giving you a vacation. I'm giving ourselves a vacation from you. Because whether you're here or not, the learning will continue. Without you. You choose. And that's where you are right now. Think. Think. Make it worth something. Relationships, memories. Ultimately, that's your goal. Because when you're breathing your last, that's what you're going to be thinking about. I'll answer any questions that you have. Any question? Yes. I coach track, I coach cross country, and I coach football. You know the one I enjoyed the most? Cross country. You want to know why? There weren't no cheerleaders. There were hardly any fans. These guys were out there, and they did what they did because they wanted it. They wanted it. And I always told them, even though cross country is like 3.1 miles you have to run, 5 kilometers, I always told them the longest distance you have to run is about 8 inches. What? That's the approximate distance between your ears. You beat that, and you'll be good. What do you think Stephen Curry's doing? He's trying to beat the 8 inches between his ears. When he puts it up, he expects it to go down. Allen Iverson played down where we're from, and they played a regional championship on our gym in our school. And Allen Iverson was making shots. He would make a 3-point shot, and he would turn, and he would jog past our coach and tease the coach before the ball went down. He said, "Watch this." Boom. Allen Iverson. The area is crazy as far as dealing out talent. I mean, where I'm from, Michael Vick came from there, Lawrence Taylor came from there, Bruce Smith came from there. There's a zillion guys, superstar kind of guys. Question? No questions? I left you all this time? Yes. Ooh. Ooh. How was my first year at Virginia Tech? You'll find this unusual. When I went away to college, I had never seen a mountain before. I had been up and down the East Coast, but I had never been west, so I never saw a mountain. So, this would have been really amazing to me, a place like this, because I had never seen it. But I will tell you this. All of a sudden, I was in an environment with people from all 50 states and 100 foreign countries. So there was all kinds of people to learn from. But do understand that I was the first African-American athlete at Virginia Tech, the very first one. But being the first African-American athlete at Virginia Tech also meant being the only African-American athlete at Virginia Tech. They got more black players on the football team than there were black students on campus when I was there. So it was a lonely time for me. I could deal with that. I had been taught to deal with that. That was not a problem. There was the usual stuff. I was walking out, I was in ROTC, so I was walking out of my dorm one day in my uniform, and somebody threw an egg out of a window, and it splashed in front of me, and some of the egg white splashed up on my trousers. I saw the window that it came from. I went back in the dorm, changed my clothes, and paid that room a visit. What would you have done? Well, let me tell you what happened. I go up there, and I bang on the door. Guy don't answer the door. I bang a little louder. And I told him, I yelled it through the door, you better open this door because if you don't open it, I'm going to kick it down. And I meant it. And after a while, the doorknob turns, the door slowly opens, and this little face comes around, peeps around the corner of the door like this. And before I even saw it, my hands were around his throat, and he was up off the ground, and I moved him across the room and jammed him up against the wall of his room. You know what happened then? A little voice in my head said, squeeze. Squeeze the life out of him. I wanted to kill him. Bad. I had had a particularly bad day. A professor had marked my paper up, and it was nothing wrong with the paper because I checked with another professor. And I wasn't in a good mood, so I was going to kill this dude. My father's voice comes to my mind. Dad's voice says, boy, what are you thinking? It's my dad. Boy, what are you thinking? And I slowly let this guy down and left. You see, life is only 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. There's that choice thing again, you see. I was ready to ruin my entire future for what? For a little egg white on my pants? That's not a good trade. Think. You see, you're a diamond. You don't want to ruin it. Diamonds can be destroyed, you know. They can burn. I was ready to burn my diamond up. For what? For something as silly as that? No. But there was more than one day when I was ready to walk off that campus, just drop out of school and come back home. Believe it or not, one of the professors there, his name was J.J. Owen, saved my life because he came to support me. He was the diamond who shined on me, and he's the one that told me, you can hang in there, you can do this. J.J. Owen died about 2 weeks ago. He was 92. Love that man. One of the finest men I've ever seen. He had no right to be who he was because he was born and raised in South Central Virginia, which is just as rural and just as, well, it wasn't the best place for a black person to be. But this guy, why in the world did he come to help me? And he did. And because of him and my dad, I'm able to stand before you today. Because God only knows where I'd be otherwise. You are in the same boat. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what your background is. You are a diamond. You are. And you're not like anybody else because you're a diamond. You are unique, one of a kind. There are none others like you. Question. Yes. Be right back in. I ran track and I played football there. What position do you think I played? Say again. Defensive back, right on it. Ed.
All your lessons, which one has been the most profound?
Of all the lessons that I learned, which one has been the most profound? One time we were running at the University of Tennessee, and I was jumping in a flight of long jumpers. I was a long jumper too. I was in a flight of long jumpers, and it was me, it was four of us, it was me and the three guys that represented the United States in the '68 Mexico City Olympics. Okay? One guy's name was Bob Beamon, who had the world record at the time. Another guy's name was Ralph Boston, who was a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. A guy named Bouncy Moore, who was from Oregon, and me. And that day, I beat everybody except Ralph Boston, the Olympic champion. But I got the world record holder. I got him. But the point is, Ralph Boston coached me as to how to beat him. He watched me jump, and he came over to me, and he said, you know, if you did this, this, and this, he said, you'd put another foot on that. What was he doing? He was shining his light on me. Why? Because he knew that the better he made me, the more competition he'd have and make him perform better. What's wrong with that? But nobody does that. It was a very special lesson, a very heavy one, because you got guys who are some of the best in the world here, you see. And not all of them did that. I also ran hurdles. And I can't tell you, I set our school record in the hurdles. I'll tell you this and I'll let you go. I ran and set 4 school records at Virginia Tech. Do you know how many times I won when I set a school record? I never won with my best performance. It's one of my happiest performances, one of the things I like to brag about most. You want to know why? These were silver medals that I got. You want to know why that was so good? Think about this. If I did my best performance and I only got second place, that means somebody in that event was better than me at my best. But what that guy in the race did was he pulled me to my best performance. Because I didn't back off of him, obviously because I gave my best performance, but I didn't win with it. It wasn't quite good enough. So I never won with my best performance. It's my best favorite claim to fame, that I never won with my best performance. If that's it, I'm done. Thank you.